Okay, guys, I'm here. This is Life Untangled. I am Casey.
And I'm Shane.
And this is really just a test of our first podcast. You're going to hear noise in the background. You're going to hear some silliness. We have our little
Live
delicious
guest.
cookie.
Hi!
Our little daughter, Nalani.
She might give inputs here and there. Hopefully you guys enjoy having a 10-year-old give her honesty to it all.
But right now, we are going to move forward with this podcast and start chopping it up. So first, my lovely wife, Shane. What's really good?
So
How are you feeling?
I could be doing 100% at the top of my life, but walking in greatness is still moving forward. Let's just say. But today we are going to talk about my sweet hubby. Let's talk about.
Let's talk about me.
What? I was talking about you. Let's talk about fear, not my husband. I don't think we want to touch on that topic today, but I think we should talk about fear as not just as an individual, but as a couple, just inclusively. What are the things that we have been going through in our life since we've actually joined and became one? The things that we've gone through and how we've conquered them, and how the fears have held us back, basically, and what do we do? What tools would you say we use to overcome these fears to keep us just thrusting forward and propelling into whatever our destination and our goals are?
Right. Fear is it's a major statement. It's a major thing that everybody has to get used to. A lot of people say, I'm not afraid of this, I'm not afraid of that. And, I'm a guy, I'm not really afraid of too much. Big cockroaches that fly. I'm scared of them. Well,
we saw those in Atlanta. By the way, guys, if you're moving to Atlanta, consider that. They don't tell you, you can look it up online. There are some meadow roaches, as Floridians like to call it, that fly across at night or in the evenings from tree to tree outside.
Yeah, and if I don't know if anybody has ever experienced this. It's not a good look when you have a roach crawling on you, right? Like, I think out of bugs, I can take an ant. An ant
Let's
is
not
good
talk
for
about bugs. I can't do
I remember when I was younger, I used to pick up worms and I let it crawl on my finger, and it feels weird. It feels disgusting, but there's something about a roach. Now, I know a baby roach is like, ooh, ew, like that, but when you have a roach as big as your thumb crawling on your arm when you're sleeping, it's that's a new level of fear. Because it's just bug. It's just a bug. But when you're woken up by a large creature,
Jurassic World size roach,
the fear gets the best of you, and you're like, oh my god, it's a roach! Somebody help me! But fear is a big topic, and that's what we'll be discussing today on our podcast.
Yeah, so let's start by asking you, babe, what would you say is one of the biggest fears or challenges that God has pulled you through? And how did you embark on basically just taking in that moment? Like, what's your perspective on that?
So, the biggest fear that I have been put through, wow. There's so many, but one that stands out was when my wife was giving birth. Now, fellas, if anybody has been in the operating room when your wife is about to give birth, it's very daunting, somewhat fearful. But when the doctor is saying, well, wait, back up. let me set the scenario, right? We're in the hospital. The doctor comes in and says, well, your wife is in labor, right? But there's a 50% chance that she dies giving birth. He
didn't say it like that.
Yes, he did.
He did not.
He did.
He said,
like,
due to the fact that your wife has already had a C-section previously, the chances of, and that's kind of how these doctors take on the roles of giving their explanation to the patient.
No.
But he didn't say she's going to die 50%.
Let's go back even further, because I think we're talking about when our daughter was born. When my son was born, my wife, she's a trooper. She's Wonder Woman, right? She's like pushing and shoving and trying to push for how many hours?
16 hours and a half.
16 hours and a half trying to push a watermelon through the eye of a needle, right? In comparison, my wife is like, babe, I just can't no more. I'm just spent. And I'm like, man.
And mind you, there was a hurricane. It was the worst hurricane that occurred in Florida at the time in 2005. Can't remember what hurricane it was, but hospital had no electricity. There's about 15, 20 other women that are in labor at the same time. Katrina, that's right. My daughter just said Katrina. I don't think it was called Katrina.
It wasn't?
No, I think that was on Louisiana. But yeah, so basically we are in the worst scenario possible. It's nothing like what women want, where we want to have our babies with the lights turned down and warm water, one of those water birth scenarios. No, went totally the opposite. Kind of like trying to race on a highway and the police is chasing me down. Which, by the way, the police actually chased both my husband down and my mother during the phase of me going through labor, because we were pretty much not supposed to be on the roads. It was a Category 5 hurricane. So, yeah, things got messy.
If you can just imagine almost the end of the world. Palm trees is on the road. I mean, literally in the middle of the road. Wind is... I'm driving. Then all of a sudden, the cop is like, whoop, whoop. He pulls us over. He's like, sir, you're not supposed to be on the road. There was a state of emergency. And I'm like, my wife is giving birth. He's like, oh, all right, follow me. So we're following him to the hospital. We made it to the hospital.
80 miles an hour.
We get there, and again, like, she's pushing and shoving. And there's more to the story because, my mom, she was in the room kind of like messing up the feng shui and the chi
feng shui.
of my wife trying to like focus on in delivering. But that's another story. But like, after 15, 16 hours, my wife is like, she sounds like Mickey from Rocky. He's like, do it because, Mickey loves you. So she's like, hey, I pushed and pushed.
Oh, God.
And I just can't push no more. And I'm like, man, that means she's got to get cut. So they start praying. As soon as they, like, the doctors, I think, are waiting. Like, I think they probably have bets outside of the room. It's like, they're like, damn, this woman's going for a long time. She's like, damn, I just lost my $100. And then as soon as they hear, you got to get cut, they're like, yes, I got it. Give me my $500, right? Because they know they want that money for cesarean. So anyway, they just immediately jump on her, boom, 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 preparing her, shoving her back with a needle and.
No, not my back. They gave me a numbing aid.
So it was an epidural.
No, I didn't do it. I've never done it.
Oh, my fault.
We have 2 kids and I've never done it.
All right, so they start prepping her, right?
They numb me from the waist down.
So they roll her into this room and it literally looks like Grey's Anatomy, right? It's like,
it did.
It's not like a horror story, but it looks like Grey's Anatomy. It's operating center, table, theater room, whatever. It's that bright light shining on top of her, like, God and angels is just like waiting to receive the spirit or something. And I was like, okay. I'm just like, don't show fear. in my mind, because my wife, her eyes are chinky anyway. Like, you know, she's Caribbean, but she looks a little Asian, a little somewhat. So her eyes are like a little chinky. So through those little chinky slits, she's just like, "Hi, babe," and I'm just like, so then they start working on her, right? They put the green towels and cloth over her stomach.
Green? Where'd you get green? It's blue.
In the light, it looked bluish green. My wife is very detailed with colors. It was a bluish green. It was green, blue, whatever, blue, green. So they put it over her, and then you see the scalpel, and that was just like a movie. The light is reflecting off of the sharpness of the blade.
Okay, director. A little bit too much, and I'm detailed.
So they start cutting. They do the cut and everything, and they actually put a blanket in front of the patient's face, because I'm guessing that if they've seen the horror of someone pulling and going into their guts, they just might die just of watching that. So they put the blanket
I like how you describe it.
over to block her face, and they kind of like are keeping me away, because I guess, you know, a lot of guys pass out from seeing, you know, guts.
Well, they also put up, you know, the what you call like a blinder, because they don't want you to look over on that side, and God forbid they mistakenly cut improperly or too deep or something.
I don't think it's mistakenly cut. I think it's if like you're just laying there, eyes.
Well, yeah, the trauma for the mother,
and then you
There's
open
trauma.
your eyes, you're like, "Is that my intestines?"
Yeah, it's
oh
trauma
my god!
because they take out,
And
you
you
know,
just,
your
like, pass out or
pancreas and all
something.
that, and put it on the side while they're getting the baby out.
So let's fast forward. So they cut her, and within like a minute of digging, because like you could feel the body just shaking and moving, and I'm like, oh snap, this is really happening. And boom, they pull out my son. I was like, oh snap, there's like another little person there. And it was a mix of happiness and joy. You know, I didn't cry, but then, you know, they start cleaning. Like the nurses are like wizards. They're like sucking the amniotic fluid and the blood and all that stuff, cleaning the baby, boom, 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 in like literally like 10 seconds, right? And they being kind of rough. I'm looking at this nurse like, I'm gonna bust your ass if you kind of like being too rough with the kid. He just came out, right? And then I look to my wife, and I see the doctor like literally like shoving her intestines back into her body, and I'm like, oh snap,
Yeah.
that is
It's real.
real. And then here comes the fear part. They immediately they're trying to bring my son out to, I guess, what is it called again? Receiving room?
The receiving room where the babies are at.
Where babies just come out. I don't remember the name, but where they put the baby to get warmed up or whatever. And there's my wife laying on the table. And I look to the baby, I look to my wife. I look to the baby, I look to my wife. And I'm like, I don't know where
And
I'm
I said,
supposed to
go with
go.
our kid wherever he goes.
So my wife says,
Follow our child.
go with my son. And that was one of the most scariest things, because, you know, I don't want to leave her alone. I'm not saying naked, but she's naked. Like, guts are still being placed in, and they sewing her up. And I don't, you know, there's a lot of things that go through your mind, but at least if something does happen,
You're present for the
I'm
moment.
present.
So
And,
you're
like,
basically are you saying
there.
you're afraid of a fatality of some kind? If the mind allows itself to work.
I don't. In my case, I didn't believe that you were going to die. I just didn't want you to be scared that you were by yourself. And you know, my son, you know, I'm not saying he was good. I don't know what he was thinking, because he's just coming into this world. But I didn't want to leave the person who spent 16 hours and 9 months of labor and baby growing to be alone for 1 second.
Right.
but I had to make the choice, and I had to go with my son, and that was one of the most terrifying things. There's a lot of terrifying things.
And what would you say to our listeners that at that moment in time, what held you together? What allowed you to say, you know what, regardless of what outcome sits here, I'm going to trust, or I'm just going to, you know, be a father, go with my son, and then come back and check on my wife?
That would be God. 'Cause I remember, like, you know, I was kind of shedding some tears because I just did not know. It's never like how you expect it to be, because, again, this was Grey's Anatomy even around
I don't know.
when Kasai was born, our son?
I think it had probably just started.
Right. So again, you see certain, and I'm not really a hospital doctor show watching. Like, my wife is actually got me more into it, and it's very educational. But from the movies and stuff that I've seen on TV, like, it's never. You know, I'm thinking, oh, it's gonna be easy. She's gonna, like, you know how they do in the movies, like, he pushes, she's like.
You sound like a horrible cat.
And the baby comes out, and then they give the baby to the mother, and she starts crying, and she's like, "Oh,
yeah, that's if it's a
this
natural.
is what's been giving me so much trouble, my little blah blah blah," or whatever, right? That's how they portray it in the movies, right? But
Now when it's C-section.
in real life, it's just like, oh snap, this ain't no movie. This is real.
Yeah.
Like, she's got to get stitched up, and. You know, I think one of the thoughts that went in is like, okay, what if something happens? How am I going to do this by myself? And that was, like, even more terrifying because, you know, I think a lot of men sometimes pretend to know what they're doing. I mean, sometimes I can pretend real good, oh yeah, I know what I'm doing. I'm going, what the heck I'm doing?
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah,
then,
no book comes with.
You know, my wife
parenting.
is really good at instructing, and I'm very good at listening because, like, you know, I picked up changing diapers and giving baby baths and like, I was kind of afraid to even pick up and hold my son when he was first born because I thought I was going to crush him or break him. But, like, you know,
you became such an expert, you would fall asleep with him.
She taught me a lot. So to have, you know, again, we were married. How long? A couple of months. Right? So we're just starting our life, and in that moment, I was like, no, she can't disappear on me, and we just started. So it was just a very crazy and serious situation, but literally, God got us through, or got me through that moment of fear where it was just like, whoa, I hope. And then what's so funny is, like, I hope I don't have any more of these, but yeah, I've had more. And more podcasts to come.
Share those events.
Share those events, but it was literally a movie.
Yeah. And I mean, fear comes, you know, going to my husband's extremely detailed and voice-overed scenario that he just gave you guys and shared in regards to our entertainment first podcast episode. That was a very I would say fearful yet amazing moment, because as a mother you go through these moments that there's no training, you know, you just kind of have to go with the wind. And it's not like girls take classes in high school or college learning how to face motherhood or parenting in any sense of the way. You just kind of, as women, we have a natural part of us that we're born just being nurtured and learning from what we've observed from our mothers, grandmothers, and past generations. But it is extremely, it has its scary moments to it, but such beautiful moments as well. Like he said, you know, I thought I was going to have natural births all the way through with both of our kids, but that's not what life or the universe or God had handed out, and I had to do 2 C-sections. Were they painful? Yes. Was there ways to deal with it and cope with it, with the slight pain of it all afterwards, or trauma? Of course. I don't think it's, there's not enough information out there on how to prepare yourself for going through C-sections of any kind, but they do have their scary moments behind it. As a mother myself, and watching my husband, in that instant in the operating room on the table where he was unsure, he looked me in the face and he's like, do I stay? Do I go? And I was like, no, as moms, we're warriors. We naturally have that, just like fathers embedded in our DNA makeup. But I was like, you better go with our kids. Don't look at me.
Actually, that's not, like, she was like,
okay, I didn't sound like Darth Vader.
No, she, her voice wasn't like projecting and showing. She was like, it's okay.
Oh yeah, like they were even gonna get a last I love you out of me. But yeah, I mean, in absolution, our faith in God is extremely intimate, and we keep him at the center and at the forefront of our relationship, of everything we do. And he's definitely who has brought us through all these fearful moments and setbacks. And man, oh man, in this one episode, or our first episode of 2020, we can't just pour it all out. But there are, just like many of you out there, a lot of things that we have had to just lay and press into our faith and believe and know and receive that everything will turn out just as he has it planned, and if not, even greater. So
I think that anyone listening out there, guys, even women, I know for a fact that I had to pray a lot to get over this PTSD, which is, a lot of times the military, PTSD is just really, when you hear the term, it's reserved for the military because of their service in a war or extreme circumstances. But again, this is in extreme circumstances, and a lot of men and women go through this. I still suffer with somewhat of it's a good thing that she's not pregnant again, because it probably might trigger certain things. But PTSD is real, and it's you can't forget about it. You just really gotta say a powerful prayer. And I believe we have a couple of prayers. I know I have some written down that I recite, and we have a lot of pastor friends, and I've learned certain key words to pray. At least for me, I feel it works. It may work for you, and that's something that we'll get into in another time. But
yeah, we've learned how to pray, as he's saying, by allowing your prayers to basically to take it to the altar and pray in boldness and in authority and in power. And those are key things I think we've learned along the way on how to pray. And there's no specific way. You can come to God at any time of the day, in any location, and it's just putting it out there.
I also feel that, my wife said this, and going over some notes. She said this yesterday, actually. Yesterday was February 26th, and I reviewed some notes, and just listening to YouTubers and affirmations and stuff like that. One of the key things is being thankful. That's one of the ways I feel a powerful prayer is. It's just not just saying, hey, God, bless me with this, that, or third. It's really just saying, you know what? Thank you for the health of my son, and, the blessing of him being born, 5 fingers, 5 toes. He is alive, well, and healthy. And I appreciate and receive all the goodness.
Yeah.
Right? So that's a quick sample off the top of my head, but it's really being thankful for what you have and the circumstances that you are in to help get you through the next set of circumstances. Because I don't, even if you're rich, you're gonna have some sort of problem. But I think being thankful is a major key and number one at the beginning of a prayer.
Of course, and adding to what my husband's saying, in regards to what I stated just a couple days ago, I, came to that epiphany, that moment where it was like, oh, you know what, babe, I don't think it's just about praying, because we're thankful and we tell our kids, when we sit in prayer as a family, we do it as a couple. We give thanks for everything we have, our kids praying for every meal that we put to their mouth, as well as do we. But it's learning how to praise yourself through the moments, praising God, not yourself, but praising God for the moments that He's taking you through, because although we can't see why we're so fearful or why certain things are occurring at the time that they occur, or just knocking us off of our high horses and resetting something, it's always for a different purpose. But praising our way out of the situations that we are in, and not allowing, them to just hold us down or keep us more set back or from reaching and attaining the things that life and God has for us. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, it's hard. I'm gonna say, I know a lot of you out there agree. Just keep pushing, keep believing, and fears come in different sizes, and it's not just, I would say, an attack of the enemy. Sometimes it's of the mindset that we're brought up in as well. I don't know if you agree.
I think and
the environment sometimes that we're brought up in.
I believe the enemy has different forms, and it's, again, we're speaking to everyone, whether you're a God believer, Christian, whoever you or whatever you believe in. The enemy can enter your mind, and you'll be battling yourself, which somewhat that's the true enemy. The enemy is yourself, and your savior is yourself sometimes. But God speaks to you to override that fear, because if He brought you this far, He's not gonna leave you.
Right.
He's like the ultimate soldier. No one gets left behind. So it's just really talking yourself out of the negative thoughts or beliefs, right? If that may resonate or make you think. But at the end of the day, the more you pray and give thanks and do it joyously with a good heart, the better you feel. And if you can last one more day and then keep praying and last another more day, those one more days will turn into 365 days.
And the next thing you know, you're in a different season, in a different setting, and it's probably just somewhere that you didn't ever expect to be. He can take one thing away from you today, but tomorrow He can absolutely turn your life around and give you something so totally and absolutely different.
Facts.
He didn't have to add that, though.
Hashtag facts.
But hey, we're on podcast, not Instagram, okay? So don't make this a live Instagram with hashtags.
Still hashtag it.
But yeah, guys. So what else would you say has been another thing that we as a couple have definitely in this season and in this new year, 2020, the year of, as they call, new visions, new what was it that we called it? I can't remember. 2020, the season.
Oh, 2020 is a clear vision.
Clear vision. But what would you say with all we're going through right now? And mind you, it's a lot, guys. We're not even going to sit here and give a list, but we've gone from my husband losing his job to losing our home to finding out we were pregnant with our second child. Just things back to back to back, like just constantly going through things. And this started in 2000 and about 2008. Our daughter was born in 2009.
Right.
But it wasn't one time, guys. Like, we've gotten a couple of blows that we've had friends and neighbors and just strangers when they hear our story. They're like, oh man, like many people, if that had occurred to them, they would have just given up. They would have been hopeless. They would have just called it quits.
He's like, damn, are you still living? You haven't killed yourself yet?
And to us, we don't believe, that it needs to come to that. We have our moments. We're human like anyone else. We definitely I have my times as a woman that you have to let go. You have to just let go. I always tell people, let go and let God. I go take my showers, and sometimes that's where I'll just pour out my heart to God and cry. That's my that's the room or the closet, where you don't want to take out your emotions on your loved ones, on your two kids. We have two children, and one of them, he was diagnosed in 2007 with Asperger's. We'll talk about that topic in another episode for many parents out there that are new to understanding the Asperger's syndrome under the umbrella of autism. But you okay, babe?
Yeah.
Yeah, my husband's like here, like, what are you doing? He's like using a napkin to. You're bleeding? Oh no. Do you need to go to the ER?
No.
There's another setback. No. But he just seems. Did you bite your tongue?
I don't know.
Throwing all those jokes that are unnecessary on our podcast.
Papa.
But yeah, so we'll talk about Asperger's, as I was saying, on the next episodes to come. But we've had a multiple, I would say, amounts of things and blows and setbacks that could literally drive a person crazy.
Yeah, more like a mountain.
Put you just in the scope of it all, in a mindset where you would want to give up. But God gives us that willpower to just dig deeper. And I think that willpower, for me, going through health issues with autoimmune issues and nervous system complications, and probably, as my doctors have said, even nerve damage of some sort from a blackout I had, my willpower and God have been my medicine. It's pulled me through a plethora of symptoms and things that I've had to battle. And it's had its moments, like I said, as a mother, as a woman, as a wife, as a friend. You don't want people to see you in your naked stage. That's what I would say. You're like, you have to just get used to being someone that can expose yourself and be okay to not be looked at, I would say, as weak or fragile, or she can't do this, or now she went from this to this. And
so let's segue into, so what was one of your biggest fears?
The one I'm touching on right now. I would. So now the podcast becomes about me.
Hey, I said
it's about fear, though. But
this one is just the beginning,
right,
of
us touching on so much.
Touching on fear, what you went through, and how you overcame it. Yeah. So I said mine. I showed you mine. Now you
joked about yours. But it's what I'm talking about right now in regards to my health.
No, but
many of you don't know me.
We need a specific.
Okay, elaboration.
Elaborate.
Okay.
Let's just touch on one little thing.
Okay, let's elaborate.
We already touched on the roaches.
To keep to keep a long story short, guys, in 2013, I had a blackout, or some of you will know it as a syncope reaction, or fainting. Doctors still can't touch on exactly what was the cause of it, but I've had several diagnoses from it being something to do with my heart, from it being a reaction to stress at the time with what we were going through, silent stress, mild stroke, which is more what I think occurred, that I had a mild stroke because it left me semi-paralyzed on the right side of my body, and to the point where I was bedridden for quite some time, for about 7 months almost.
And just to be clear, how old are you?
I am 38.
And when did this occur?
It was 2013, so I was 32.
32 years old. Okay, continue. Just to give,
31.
she's not like she's like 81 or 71.
No,
so
I was very vibrant,
she's in
very healthy.
Early 30s.
Yeah,
early
I was
30s.
very athletic because my background is, in high school, college, I was taking dance courses to get my degree. I was teaching dance. I was very athletic. I did everything from basketball to track to swimming. You name it, I did it. I always was working out and eating as best as I possibly could.
Just
so
to be clear, I've never seen her swim yet. I seen her float real good. She floated real good. I haven't seen her swim.
So doctors pretty much have been testing me constantly because now they're saying, well, when we lived out in LA, I had to seek out functional medicine and naturopathic doctors that were the biggest help, I would say, to get me back onto a platform where I could function, at least to do my daily activities and function on a daily scale with a mother of 2 children.
What's the name of those doctors?
Dr. Monica Hershaft.
Yeah, shout out to Dr. Monica Hershaft.
Yes, and Dr. Jan Head. She's located in Robertson, Pico.
Yeah, phenomenal.
Yeah, they definitely helped me a lot with rebooting my body, detoxing my body. I had to completely change my lifestyle, diet, products I was using on my skin, everything overall. That's a whole nother episode, so we're not going to tap into that today. But needless to say, the fear, guys, it went from 0 to 200. I won't even say 100, but 0 to 200 literally within weeks. We were moving from Miami to LA right when I blacked out. Got rushed to the ER. I came out with symptoms from vertigo issues to nausea to throwing up to my stomach giving me problems, everything under the moon. I went to the lowest point where I became almost like that of an autistic child, where all my 5 senses were damaged, heightened, out of place. They were out of whack. I couldn't take sound, noise. I couldn't even talk. I was absolutely from within paralyzed. So that for me was like, I was like the walking dead. I was alive and grateful in the sense of it all, but it felt like I was not in my body per se. It wasn't me in there anymore. So I had to go through a lot of moments where panic attacked me. I was hardly sleeping. My husband wasn't even sleeping. He was afraid to even close his eyes because I needed assistance with using the restroom, being lifted up to walk. I started losing almost the feelings in my leg. My legs started getting weaker, and I had very, very toned, muscular legs. And now I still live with pain in my body, which we're trying to get to the core of what the problem is still. It could be fibromyalgia. I was told possibly lupus, maybe MS was coming on, but I rebuke and I refuse to receive those things because as a person that always has the determination behind it all to want to get to fixing the core of the problem, I feel my willpower and all of the seeking and researching that God has been giving me the power and the ability to do, that I will find the solution to get into the core of the problem. Everyone's built differently. I know there's people out there that live in pain. I have friends and family that have their own different tweaks and illnesses and setbacks with their health. But for me, God, pressing into God at that time and really pouring out my soul. And I was Christian even before this occurred to me. I have family and friends that they're like, why did this happen to her? Like they can't connect the dots, but there's always a higher purpose and a reason behind it. And I feel that with what I'm going through, that it's leading me to using my testimony and my story to just inspire other people, as my husband's constantly pushing me to do.
But what was the scariest moment? Describe it. Like what?
When I would say, when I blacked out and you, as you call it, you snapped me out of it because the ambulance was taking too long to arrive. I don't know. I don't remember my bearings too great, but I think what really gave me the effect of being the scariest absolute moment was when I started to slightly come up out of that blackout feeling or sensation. I heard our kids whispering to one another. Our daughter at the time had just turned 3. And I remember it clearly because it happened in August and July, the end of July, because it was my birthday, I just passed in. She was whispering in her tiny little sweet voice to her brother. And this was about 3 o'clock in the morning, give or take, my husband says, because everyone was sound asleep. And she whispered to her brother, brother, wake up. And he must have sat up and saw the whole scenario, through his eyes and said, what's wrong with mommy? Is mommy dying? And I remember hearing the echo of it all. And the blackout just had me so out of it, my senses, that it was like I was, how they say you see the light? Like there's a white light at the end of the tunnel. And I'm like, I didn't see a white light. I felt whiteness and I feel my spiritual self in the presence of the blackout, not being in body more. It was like an in and out of body experience. And all I kept saying was, not now, God. Like, you can't take me down. Please, my kids need me. And I just remember hearing the echo of it all. And that was like the most scariest feeling I had as a mother, was leaving you guys and not being present, not being there to kiss them or to feel them or to hold them or to say, just say, I love you.
And if you can picture me in the background, right?
Here we go. You're gonna add on. I'm gonna give you the floor.
I'm gonna paint the picture, right? Something woke me up, and this is the time I believe my wife had got a new cell phone. So she's the type of person, a normal human being will be like, you know what? I'll figure this phone out in the morning. But no, she wants to start screwing around with it at 2 o'clock in the morning, right? So the night before she was doing that. So I was like, she's like, oh, I'm just doing this. And I'm like, why don't you go to bed?
You can't sleep.
So she couldn't sleep. So I remember she went on the floor one time. She's like, oh, I'm just down here so the light doesn't bother me. I'm like, all right. Well, people go to sleep and they'll figure out the phone in the morning. She's doing it at 2 o'clock in the morning, whatever. The next night, again, I wake up, something wakes me up, and I don't know what it was. It could have been her falling and hitting the bed, and it just jarred me awake. So I woke up, and I looked to the right, looked to the left. I'm like, maybe she's in the bathroom or something. So then I get up out of bed, and again, most people would have just rolled over and went back to sleep. So I just got up and just to see.
Yeah, that was such a blessing, I have to say, guys.
So
he did not go back to sleep. So God knew what he was doing there because I would have probably been gone.
So I walk around the bed.
No, you saw our daughter.
Yes,
she was.
Yes.
That's what gave
right.
you the biggest,
so,
I think, thought process. Like, why is she up?
Right.
And my wife would usually be cuddling with her or something.
Right. So I'm like, what is our daughter looking down at? So I walk around the bed.
Did you assume I was in the bathroom or something? Because you know how I get up to use the bathroom.
Right. I thought you was in the bathroom. So I walk around, I look down, and then you're just laying on the floor. So I'm just thinking, this big old dummy, she was...
Great, call me a dummy on live air.
No, because you know how sometimes you messing around with something, then you just get so tired, you find that comfy spot, and she just fell asleep on the floor. So I go around, and I'm like, Shane, wake up. I'm thinking she fell asleep. And she's like, I'm like,
if you guys could only see his face over here.
So I'm just like, what are you doing on the floor? Like she couldn't really even talk. I'm like, what are you saying? She's like, I'm so cold. I'm like, you're so cold. I'm like, so I try to lift her up, and she's like literally like unconscious, like limp. So
that's why. Did you go into high gear at that time?
No, because I couldn't ascertain, like, because I'm my memory is sharp, so I know, like, well, it wasn't what she ate, because I ate the same thing, and I'm not feeling anything. So I'm lifting her up by her neck, and I'm not slapping her. I'm just like caressing her face, and then she just wasn't waking up. So then, like, I'm gently like tapping it, not slapping, but just tapping, and she's like, and I'm just like, what are you doing? And then that's when our daughter decides to start waking up our brother. So she starts doing it. I'm like, no, don't do that. Because, like, my son is a little bit overexcited. And I didn't, I'm thinking like a million thoughts in like half a second. Because I don't know what's going on with her, but I don't want my son to wake up, and I definitely, we were staying with my wife's parents, so I don't want them to wake up because then it's just going to be a show. So I just wanted to find out what was going on. So I'm like trying to like tap her face. My son wakes up.
How was it coming out of it?
She wasn't coming out of it. So then I had to lift her up to place her on the bed because like she just kept complaining that she was cold. So I just threw a blanket on her.
Did you? I don't remember hearing that.
Yes, I threw a blanket on you, and I was just trying to speak to her to say, what's wrong with you? Like, tell me what's wrong. She couldn't really talk. I don't remember you saying that. No, like, I was like, should I take you to the hospital?
Did I answer?
Yeah, he was like, yes, I need to go to the hospital. So I was like, boom, high gear. So then I went into her parents' room. Now here's the challenge. They're both very excitable, especially her mom. So then I was like, Mom.
More like worrisome.
Excitable.
You're trying to be kind.
Wake up. I have to take Shane to the doctor. And she was like, what? Actually, Shane's mother is Caribbean Latin. So she has a very unique accent. Yeah. So she's like, don't do that to her on live. She was like, what? Make me see. So she just runs out and she's like, oh, Jesus. And I was like, oh boy, here we go. So I had to like, she woke up, Dad, and that's when I was like, all right, you got to get the car ready. I'm going to carry her out. I jumped into some clothes and boom, taking her to the hospital. But for her, that was, a super scary moment. Her being semi-conscious and don't know if she's going to live or die.
And then also the process of going through the not knowing. Because up until now, we still don't have a clear, concise diagnosis or answer. But we've come to just be prayer warriors, I would say, and walk by faith and allow God to just lead us day by day. But it was very, very scary to have to go through flare-up moments, setback, being bedridden. All that has packed, like he would say, PTSD into a person's body and having to just find the willpower and dig it from deep within yourself and pull it out to just say, you know what? I don't know what tomorrow brings. I don't know what an hour from now is going to bring, but just allowing yourself to be okay with knowing that God's got you.
Right.
That's what I would say my medicine has been the most, aside from the people that have helped me along the way, including my hubby.
Right. So again, the topic is, small events that we're very fearful that we had to overcome. I'm pretty sure everybody has one or two or three or four of those type of stories. We're going to get into more, but we hope you enjoy our first podcast.
Thank you guys for joining us. And like he said, we have a lot more of our fiercely honest and open, intimate conversations to have with you guys. And we hope you guys enjoy the pieces. And yeah, what else? More to come.
More to come.
Different topics.
Keep coming back for more stories, more tips, more of us. I am Casey, and this is my wife,
Shane. And remember, guys, life gets a little messy at times, so you gotta be able to be okay with the moments that untangle for you.
Right, and my words of wisdom is a bird in the hand sometimes poops on the wrist.
We'll talk about that next show.
All right, guys.
See you guys later.